Okay, good morning or afternoon, everyone, depending where you are located. Um, we'll start maybe in minute or two. We let people log in and get into the webinar room. So please bear with us a few moments, and we'll get started. Okay. So it seems we have more people now in the room. So let's get things started. Good afternoon or morning, everyone. My name is Marek. I'm one of the co-founders and co-CEO of Vestberry, which is a portfolio management system dedicated specifically for venture capital funds. And today I will be moderating an interesting panel discussion or webinar on the topic how agentic AI systems are reshaping the venture capital workflows or operations. And we have two great speakers today. First, I'll start with Maurice Henry Buettgenbach. Hopefully, that's the right pronunciation from Daidalus, and also Georgiy Sekretaryuk, difficult names today, from Enter Overdrive. I will now let both gentlemen to introduce a little bit, their respective companies and what they work on. So, Maurice, we can start with you. Great to have you here.
All right. Thanks. Excited to be here. Yeah, I'm the co-founder of Daidalus, and since last week also from Soulmate. A small fun fact: we founded actually. What we do is Daidalus. We're a boutique consultancy firm. We focus on finance, actually everything around data analysis and, of course, AI in terms of finance, accounting, controlling, all of that stuff. And my new side gig is Soulmate, which is an agentic platform also for corporate finance teams.
Thank you, Maurice. Georgiy?
Wonderful. My name is Georgiy, and I'm the partner at Overdrive. We are an intelligence studio and also a boutique consulting firm, and we help venture capital firms build their operating systems. So we'll come in and build the full data tech stack from the bottom up.
Amazing. So, I think very relevant trio here today to discuss the agentic use cases for VC. So what do we have on the agenda today? So we'll keep it practical. We will have 10-15 minutes discussion about kind of setting the frame or context, what is the state of AI and agentic workflows in VC. Second part, which will be maybe 30-35 minutes, will be the practical showcase of some of the use cases, right? So I will be first Georgiy, Maurice, and then myself, showing also how we think of the AI opportunities from the Vestberry perspective. And then at the end, last 10-15 minutes, we'll leave for a Q&A. So please use the chat function of this webinar where you can ask questions. We will definitely spend time to answer some of the top interesting ones. Okay, so that's the intro. Let's dive into the discussion segment of this webinar. And Georgiy, I will start with the first question to you. So if you had to bet on one VC workflow that gets fully, agent run or basically fully, automated by agents in the next 18 months, So what do you think are the biggest opportunities for the type of automation from your perspective?
Yeah, great question, Marek. I think so. The VC workflows are very complex. I think the complexity is in the nuance that happens and the personal skills. So we'll talk a lot about Maurice. There's a lot of nuance in the finance and the back office. Mark, there's certainly a lot of nuance in the portfolio reporting. What we find is that on the easier side of automation that I think will be automated in 18 months is on the sourcing and enrichment side for startups. I think that is currently the most automatable. And the further down you get, the more nuance there is. Investment memos are hyper-personalized, and there's a lot of nuance between how each fund approaches their investments. On the sourcing side, it's a lot easier where you want to track companies from certain sources. You need to keep identifying new sources and then enriching them with the right data. You may want to change your setup, but it's more and more automatable now than ever, and you can get a very good perspective of complete deal coverage in the universe. So if I was to make a bet, I would say it's sourcing and enrichment for companies and founders, and then further on, it'll be more difficult.
Maurice, do you have any bets from your side?
Well, I would go the opposite direction. So, I mean, coming from the back office field and focusing on finance, this is what we have the most visibility on. And if you look what's happening globally in that space, not just Europe or Germany where we're active, it's pretty clear that a lot of these core accounting workflows that you do in terms of fund accounting, for example, are most likely going to be completely automated in the next 18 months because there's a lot of standardization already happening. You have some problems with legacy systems, etc. But in the end, there's a lot you can do with AI already now. So if I'm thinking about 18 months in the future, then I'm pretty sure that the most things that these teams are doing nowadays, you can do with agents.
And I believe now, basically, both of you worked quite a lot in the last, let's say, 12 to 18 months with the applications of AI or workflows, recently also cloud skills. What were some of your learnings that you have? And perhaps, do you have any stories that you thought, okay, this is going to work, but it failed? And yeah, if you could maybe tell us some of the stories from the past. Maybe Georgiy, if you could take this one first.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think where we were probably a little bit more optimistic in the beginning is the components that did require a bit more of a human touch and a bit more nuance. For example, memo generation. You can certainly generate much better memos now than you could 12 to 18 months ago or 24 months ago or what have you. That has improved, especially with Claude and the enrichment tools and MCP servers that are available. But there's still a lot of nuance from fund to fund that is available. And the bigger challenge in generating the memo isn't actually creating the text. It's actually connecting the right tools to get the right data and the context and the knowledge layer for the fund. So, for example, I'll give a very specific example without identifying our client. We're working with a client, in a $100 million plus fund, and they were going through the memo. We generated a very hefty 10 to 15 page memo, and the client pointed out, hey, on one of the discovery calls that we had with this startup, they mentioned that a Big Four firm was actually also approaching this industry, and here in this market segment section, we didn't flag that or do any sort of research. Why do we not pick that up? And that is actually a context and knowledge problem that you need to engineer around to be able to retrieve those really small details and then have an agent go and research and dive deeper into them. There's a lot of nuance around what is important and why is it important. And not every fund may treat it the same. One fund may say, yes, that small note may be very important. Another fund may say, well, that is not as important for us. And so this is where I think, this is also why the first question I said, maybe sourcing and not so much reporting or investment memo generation. I think there's still a lot of that human touch that is required in back and forth. And it's a very personalized experience, but the foundations of that is the context and knowledge layer that you have across the fund where you can tap into that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Maurice, any learnings so far?
Actually, something very concrete. So I don't know if we have any people from Germany here, but you probably know Daidalus, the #1 accounting system. So we tried to teach an agent to read that data, and it always got the debit and credit sides wrong persistently. Until we figured out that actually the official documentation, which we were feeding the agent as context, got it wrong. So the system provider wrote it wrong in their own instructions. And therefore, it didn't matter what we wrote in the skills or whatever, because we were always feeding the original instructions thinking, okay, Dativ itself knows what they're doing, right? So we were feeding that without really checking if that is correct. So in the end, we built a lot, we wasted a lot of time until somebody of the team actually looked into documentation and said, hey, the English version is wrong. So in the German version, which we reviewed, it was correct, but the English one we fed the agent was wrong, therefore the output was wrong. So, you know, like everything you can do nowadays with Claude, etc., is great, and it brings you from A to B quickly. But the problem is it's still like the small, tiny details that you need to be aware of, and you can waste a huge amount of time finding that out, and even AI cannot help you with that.
Mm. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is the kind of
Context.
the underlying data structure, the context, kind of the mission critical thing before you plug in anything on top. Yeah, makes sense. Um, so now let's jump to the, let's say, the topic that has always been in the VC tech stack community, buy versus build. I think now the line is kind of getting a lot blurrier, right? Because it's a lot easier to build nowadays. So maybe what's your perspective now on the buy versus build momentum now? Like probably, most of the VCs still won't be, writing their kind of own like production ready code. Maybe they will be playing around with vibe coding, but what is the what is the take? What is your take on where they should focus? With all these, let's say, vibe coding opportunities. Whoever wants to go first.
I'm
Georgiy.
happy. I'm happy to go. Okay, so we get this a lot actually, and we do sell custom systems to our clients. But first and foremost, even though we build these custom systems, I'm a big proponent of buy, not build. And we actually have a lot of clients that have come to us and said, hey, you know what? We actually want to build our own CRM. And on the surface, that may seem like a good idea. And if you have a super proprietary workflow, that may be the right approach. Maybe, but with a very big asterisk, because first of all, once you build one proprietary system, you maybe want to build 10 others, and every system you have to maintain. The most expensive line of code is the one that you write yourself. So a lot of people don't factor in the maintenance cost for your team, even with the vibe-coded systems. So by the time you actually build multiple custom products, just the maintenance time alone is probably going to be quite significant. Number two, with all due respect to however large your budget is, you probably aren't Attio that has just raised a $50 million fund that is just an expert at CRMs. And that's all they do day in, day out. They come into the office. You're probably not a Vestberry. You don't live and breathe across thousands of use cases of building out portfolio management systems. And of course you can learn, but that learning time you're not accounting for, that is a huge, huge uplift. So combined with those two, with how easy it is to build, I think the opportunity is actually in integrating these tools and building your internal systems, but taking what's best off the shelf. And I don't think that Claude Code and these other tools are changing this calculus. I think it's easy to get sucked into this idea of it's so easy to build, we should build. But I think that's actually the wrong approach, and that's a trap. And you end up with a lot of technical debt that you then have to dig yourself out of. There are cases like where there are no great solutions to the market yet, like LP sourcing or custom sourcing or screening or enrichment tools, what have you, or you connect different data systems. Yes, totally. There's nothing perfect. But building like a CRM from scratch, which I've heard many funds say, I think that's a trap. I don't think you should go there because that'll lead you into a lot of tech debt that you don't foresee yet.
Maurice?
Amen. Like, I don't have anything to add to that. It's like I would have said exactly the same. I think what's important now is you need to have an intelligence layer, whatever that is. It can be Claude, can be ChatGPT, Codex, can be something else, but you need to pick a strategy for that. But I would always buy, because building yourself is just so much more cost and time that you can imagine. A very simple example: if you don't have anybody in your firm right now who can actually bring a vibe-coded app from what you see on your local drive, when you kind of like say, okay, open up in my browser and then put that on a containerized service so that your entire team can use it. If you don't have anybody who knows that part, then you already have a problem. Because vibe coding something that looks pretty and works on your laptop, I think a lot of people can do nowadays. But bringing that to production with everything that's needed, if you're a regulated fund, have fun. Yeah. So I would always buy that. You will be quicker to where you want to be than if you vibe code it yourself. If you want to have the experience, go to a hackathon. Cool. You will come out with something really nice. You will be educated. But in the end, I think the focus of a fund or a team is not vibe coding their own apps. It's wasted time.
Cool. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Let's move to the second part of this webinar, so we at least have the 30 minutes for the presentations. So we'll start with Georgiy. I'll give you the word now. You can share your screen and show us some of the things you guys are building.
Yeah, great. Let me just make sure that this is all working. All right. Okay, let me share my screen. There we go. Can you see this?
It's loading. Oh yeah,
Can you see
good to go.
Can you see the slides, or can you see the other screen? Because I switched between the desktop.
We see the slides, automating sourcing with Claude.
Perfect. Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. My name is George again with Overdrive, and we are an intelligence studio. This should go next. There we go. We are an intelligence studio that builds tools to scale people, businesses, and possibilities. We help a lot of venture capital and private equity funds set up their operating systems. We've worked with a variety of different clients across multiple continents, and we help support and run operations for the data-driven VC community. So you may have actually seen some of our work through tools like vcstack.com. We help run partnerlist.com and a few other tools. So if you haven't checked those out, I'm happy to share some resources. But we've been around for a little while now, supporting many different funds around the world and helping them build their operating systems. I won't spend too long on who we are, but we effectively will come in and use the latest tools to help you automate your tech stack and help you stay ahead of the game. And we will automate various parts of the venture workflows, from sourcing and qualification to portfolio management monitoring to LP sourcing to report generation. Today, we will tackle a little bit on the sourcing side. We actually prepared an automated code skill to source Y Combinator companies that we'll walk through today. And so we will share that with you at the end as well. The way that we look at building tech stacks is that we come with a layered approach where we start, when we come into a fund, we start by looking at the tech stack holistically and understanding what exactly you have and what exists, and are the tools connected? Do you have the proper data infrastructure in place? We will usually identify the data sources and tools that you use, and then build the data foundations layer. So come in, figure out, what sort of a storage system you have. Either you use something, you're an advanced user that has, PostgreSQL, and Snowflake or something, or you're more on the junior side, maybe you're still using Airtable and spreadsheets and looking to migrate and build out your data foundations. And then after we build out the data foundations, we'll clean the data, of course, and then we'll start building out the insights and the user applications layers and work our way up to making sure that we set you up with a strong operating system and strong foundations. A quick case study on sourcing before we actually jump into the meat and bones of this. We helped one of our clients, as a climate tech fund, and they were a small 3-person team, and they were sourcing fewer than 100 companies per month, sourcing and screening, and that took up most of their team's time. They didn't really have an automated system to do that, and so we came in and we automated sourcing from all their different sources that they desired. And now they source close to 400 companies per month, and they screen them automatically, and they're free to go and do other work and focus their time on what matters most. They're not anymore all 3 people tied up to sourcing just under 100 companies. So this is an example of a case where we were able to automate sourcing and increase their deal coverage by about 150% in a very short time period. And we are now putting together a lot of resources for VCs. I'll walk through some of them that are available. The most exciting one right now that we put together for this demo is the VC sourcing skill for automating Y Combinator sourcing. It's a lot of funds reach out to us and ask, hey, how can we source companies from Y Combinator or from other incubators and accelerators? And so we put together a generic VC sourcing skill. And in this demo, I'll walk you through how you can run it using Claude Code if you're a Claude user. And if you're not a Claude user, we can obviously chat after about what that would entail. So this skill takes about 30 minutes to run. So we won't do a live run, but I will show you screenshots of what it looks like when it does run live. Currently, VCs waste many hours reviewing YC batches and extracting companies and enriching them and then creating outreach. So we created a Claude Code skill that can source any YC company, enrich the founders, scrape their websites, find latest press coverage, find their funding rounds, and screen them. Of course, every single skill would need to be configured slightly to screen them according to your fund's requirements. But this is a starting point where we just took an example for demo purposes. Very important note, we did use the Apify MCP server and the Apify skills in this demo. So if you're not familiar with Apify, it's also an amazing Czech company, and they have a lot of tools for agents, over 25,000 tools for web scraping, data extraction, and automation. I don't get any references, so there's absolutely no paid referrals here, but they are a fantastic tool that we use for many implementation purposes, and I'm sure many of the funds here are probably familiar with Apify or have heard of them for scraping. And the skills that we use here are actually Apify scrapers that are available. Apify actually has many fantastic scrapers, including Y Combinator scrapers. So if I go back and quickly, let me actually do this instead. If I just undo my full screen and share this with you, there is an example of a Y Combinator scraper here. And this scraper will run and extract startup leads, founder emails, LinkedIn profiles, hiring data, anything else that you may want, and all of that can be delivered directly to you. All of this data in in your Claude Code. If any information is missing, like founder details, or you want to go do deeper enrichment, you can do that with other Apify skills or using Exa, and that's what we built into the skill. So we will go in and scrape the YC batches, and for every company, we will identify the founder, scrape the company, scrape the founder, find their emails, and prepare information for outreach. So I won't run it through it live, but I'll show what it looks like in some screenshots, and then I'll walk you through the repository if you do want to use it. So once you install a skill, You can just ask it to source a certain amount of companies that you want. You can ask it to source all the companies in a batch or a certain amount of companies. So in this case, I asked them to source 50 companies from the recent YC batch. There's actually not 50 companies in summer 2026, so I asked the agent to default back to spring 2026, the latest available version. And so it sourced 50 sample companies that requested and provided an example of 10. So there's some here that are available from the latest Y Combinator batch, and it shows some high-level information that is available, the name, the industry, the stage, and the website. Then for each company, we also source the founders. And so from the first source, without even full complete enrichment, we were able to get some of the founder names, some of their, if the LinkedIn is available, if the email is verified, save all that information into a JSON and CSV file. Then we also parsed for any latest news and any signals that may be available. So for example, these companies here, they were just recently in the news. So there's a product launch, there's a hiring announcement, there is some of them got an award, some of them got featured for something else. There's 50 companies, but we only pulled out 10, so you can see some of the latest news by recency. And then all of this information gets saved into a beautiful JSON file or CSV format where you can go through and see every single company and all of the information that was extracted. So hopefully you folks can see my screen here, but here, for example, Alchemize, we have their Y Combinator profile, their logo, their description, their batch, industry, status, tags, location, founders, and LinkedIn, are they hiring, open jobs, any sort of information that you may want on them or their founders, including their X profiles. Everything is available here that you can then feed into your CRM or automate any sort of outreach. A workflow here may be that you may want to source out of the recent batch of 300 companies, source all of the founders, then screen them. And after you screen them, you may want to decide, hey, those that pass the screening, automatically send them an email or send them a LinkedIn message, and you can take it a step further and automate that whole process. So within 30 minutes, you can have hundreds of companies scraped, enriched, screened, and if qualified, then set up outreach to those founders. We have put together a repository here that I will share at the end of the call here, but it is a VC sourcing skill repository. So there are instructions here on how you can go ahead and install it. There's a step-by-step process. It's very straightforward. You will need to get API keys from Aptify and Exa to install with the MCP servers. And then all you need to do is just copy this repository and install it and tell it to source companies, and it'll start ahead with the sourcing process. We have been curating a lot of various skills. And so this is one of the skills that we have curated and put together, but we have actually just launched vcskills.com. So this is a free repository of curated skills for VCs and MCP servers. So you can actually click on this repository here and browse through over 177 curated skills for any sort of cloud code purpose. They're tagged by different categories like due diligence, deal sourcing, fund operations, data infrastructure, and there's various skills here to help you be better and be more efficient at your work. We also have multiple MCP servers that we've already curated. So many of these folks may be using like PageBook connectors, Morningstar, Moody's connectors, Apify MCPs, what have you. All of these are laid out here, and they provide information and details on how to install them, how to use them, and it is completely free for anybody to access the resources and filter through them. And at Overdrive, we build a lot of these tools for VCs and resources. This is one of them. We have, of course, I mentioned built vcstack.com. There's also a fantastic resource promoted through Data Driven VC. So if you may be looking for community resources or templates, I highly recommend you check out either vcstack.com or vcskills.com, and you may find some valuable information here. If you do want to check out the skill, we do have the skill available and $100 off Apify for 2 to 3 months for you to try and play around with the skill and do sourcing for free. We will send you, if you scan this QR code, we will send you the full repository link and the access to vcskills.com and a code to use Apify for $100 off. There is only about 150 uses. So it's first come, first serve. I know there's over 200 people signed up on the webinar, but feel free to give it a scan, and you can take the skill for a spin for free and see how you like it.
Awesome, Georgiy. Thanks a lot for the presentation, and I'm definitely gonna try the VC skills and play around. Hopefully, we can also contribute to those that we are building on our side, and yeah, we'll build something great for the community. Yeah, amazing. Thank you. All right, so let's move on. Maurice, now it's your turn. So if you would like to take the screen and. Yeah, let's see what you got there.
All right, let's see. Okay, I can't do a full screen share, so guys, please bear with me. But you can see it, right?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so same as with Georgiy, I cannot do a live demo because the skill / the workflow that we have identified runs over 45 minutes. So it would be a little bit too much to do it right now. But I brought the case study with me, which we have implemented with Soulmate for one of our clients. It's one of our pilots, and basically it's a fund fee reconciliation, which is run once every quarter. To give you kind of like an overview of how it was done before. So before, the key person, one person in that company had to basically pull all of the transactions out of the accounting system, analyze them top to bottom in order to locate, okay, are all invoices for the fund management fees actually booked? Have they been paid? Are there any problems? I don't know, wrong entries, wrong fund they have been associated to, etc. Had to flag and communicate all of these findings and then make the corrections. In my opinion, they have been very standardized, so that took them 1 day. Most clients we see that takes longer, but in the end it still hurts because it's repetitive. You have to theoretically always, like audit yourself. In that case, they didn't really have any kind of audit pass. And of course, you have a key person dependency. So the issue was, for example, if that person was sick, that was waiting for a week. So what we did was we built a custom agentic architecture, which is now part of our product as well. And what it's doing is it's sitting in between all of the different systems and brings in its own sub-agents and tools and all skill systems. So you can imagine it a little bit like if, I would say, Claude's OpenClaw and Tableau had a baby, kind of. So it ships with dashboards. It has all kinds of heartbeat. It has the coding, etc., that you have with Claude. And it's designed in a way that you can give it to a person in the back office without any prior experience. Yeah, so you don't need to work in the terminal, etc. You can just work as if it's ChatGPT, for example. So what it's doing is it connects to the accounting system, in that case Dativ, German client, and to the Google Drive where they have all of their contracts. Then it uses the skill system that we built and the 2 dedicated sub-agents, so one for data analysis in order to off-shift a lot of the context, and a research sub-agent, because you have always the problem that models are trained well, but they might not be up to date to the latest regulation. So you need to give your agent the ability to search the web, kind of ground itself whenever it's needed, or check if there's some kind of accounting which looks dubious. And we have, of course, the orchestration as well, which is run actually on Mistral. So we don't have any kind of Claude in the mix, which might be a surprise for everybody. But we have found that you can do with alternatives much better and cheaper things than if you always use Clodo post 4.7. Let's see if we can zoom in. Yeah, okay. So I also brought screenshots basically to show you how it looks. Very simple. In this case, I used demo data because obviously you cannot share any official client data, but what you can do is you can either drag and drop your files, or if it's in the production system, it already has access to your accounting and to your files, and you can kick it off via the web, via Slack, or on a schedule. So in terms of the client, what it's doing is 1 week after the quarterly closing, the agent starts running itself. You don't need to tell them anything, it will just go. Yeah? And whatever is there is there. If you have anything missing, it will flag it later on. So that's basically how you kick off. Then in terms of the analysis, we have a dedicated skill, which I'm happy to share. It is customized for our platform. However, I wrote for this webinar also a version which is much more broad, so you theoretically can also customize it for yourself. So if you would have a Claude setup already, which talks to your accounting system and to your contracts, happy to connect and give it to you. But what the agent now is doing, it's loading first the reconciliation skill. It's reasoning about what are the workflows, what is needed. It goes in and checks what is actually the content in the contracts, what are the schedules on where the invoicing should be done, how high, for which fund, etc., etc. Pulls in all of this data and combines it and analyzes it against the Excel file or the live data from your production system. And then it runs the workflow from A to B. And in the end, you're getting a report which has multiple parts. So in that case here, for example, it only flagged 4 issues that it found. But in case of the client, it is getting an individual report per fund, one summary in an Excel file as well as in chat. And it is also creating, let me go here, a corrections file. So in the production setup, it would write the corrections once you as a human approve directly back to the accounting system. So you don't need to go in and book yourself anymore. You basically just tell the agent, yes, your findings are correct, or exclude X, Y, Z, and it goes and does everything it needs to do. All you need to do is a review. And what we have also done as kind of like the end of the whole loop is given it the availability or the ability to inform others, either manually or automatically. So when it's done, you don't need to check your web application, anything. It will send you on Slack what it's going to do or what it has already done. And you can also say it is going to inform not just you, but for example, the CFO or some other person that needs to be informed. Basically, outcome of the whole exercise was that we have now reduced it to less than an hour. In case of the client, it runs roughly 45 minutes, in which that person doesn't have to do anything. The work comes in after, of course. We need to check the results. You might need to follow up on a couple of questions. You need to see if this accounting data that was generated is correct as well. But in the end, it is a significant decrease of time. The accuracy went up because it's not manual work anymore. Yeah, you can basically just run it and it keeps checking. It scales up with every new contract that they just simply put in this folder. And what I personally like very much, it learns over time. So when the controller is talking to our agent and gives feedback and says, okay, that was good, that was bad, the agent learns. So with every interaction that it does, it's a closed loop. It will adjust the skill, and over time, it will get more and more accurate. So even if in the beginning there are some problems because it's not good enough for that context or there's some kind of edge case, you do that a couple of times, but the next iteration, it will get better. Couple of words of what's still a problem. So as mentioned, edge cases happen. You need to give feedback. If you don't give feedback, they will never learn it. Data quality is also a huge issue. So if the accounting itself is not done well, the agent doesn't have a lot of context to go on. You can put more and more in a skill, of course, in order to kind of give that context. But if the accounting data and, for example, the transaction descriptions, etc., are not good enough or not delivering not enough context itself, then also the agent and the skill cannot perform well. Everybody who is in the EU, human-in-the-loop checkpoints are also an issue because they're basically breaking any kind of automation. There's always somebody who needs to press a button or give some kind of feedback, which theoretically in this scenario is not needed anymore because it could just run from end to end and then the final result could be checked. However, you have to have human in the loop. And of course, exception handling is also always an issue. Sometimes large language models decide to do something completely the other way, even though 100 times before it went well. That's still the mystery that we're trying to figure out. But the next steps that we are now looking into is kind of going to the beginning and say, all right, if you have a contract which you need to invoice based on, let the agent do the invoicing. So we're not checking in the end, we are actually doing the invoicing on the front. We are also looking into do complete autonomous messaging so that you don't need to instruct the agent, but that the agent is actually deciding itself whom to inform, whether that is a human or another agent. So for example, if you would hook it up together with Claude, they would have a nice conversation. And of course, we are looking into different use cases, not just the management fees, but other things like the waterfalls, cable calls, distributions, stuff like that. Speed run. You should have some more time, Marek, so go ahead.
Thanks. Thank you, Maurice. And I think this is also an interesting use case that kind of fixes the foundational part, right? Coming from the accounting, having the foundations correct, right? And finding any discrepancies there. So great use case for the back office part. Thank you, Maurice. So we have 15 minutes left, so I'll jump in before the Q&A. Let me share my screen. Okay. Do you see my screen? Works fine. Okay. So wanting to present a few learnings, recent learnings we've had in Vestberry, and definitely the topic of vibe coding and building the own systems is becoming quite popular, and just wanted to show basically how there are opportunities to build on top of Vestberry if there are maybe custom use cases or setups that the VCs want to solve for maybe specific problem in their workflow. But I'll start maybe with the first expectations or assumptions that we've seen that VCs have when trying to build something internally, and still, like one of the biggest problems in VC, and especially where we see the portfolio management, is that a lot of the source data is in documents, whether PDFs, spreadsheets, emails, right? So basically, the one of the biggest problems is to kind of get the unstructured data into kind of a structured format or a database, which maybe the first experimental idea would be to put it in like a spreadsheet or maybe some kind of simple database, on top of which then you kind of build your vibe-coded interfaces. At first, this definitely sounds appealing and exciting, and I think a lot of investors get into their building modes. However, we have to be aware, of certain problems of when approaching your tech stack in this way. Maurice mentioned it as well, but especially in Europe, the regulatory compliance is a big pressure. So we have the EU AI Act, but also in 2025 the DORA was introduced, which basically tells us how we can handle financial data, how the AI workflows need to be set up. One of the at least from my perspective, the biggest complexities is to get the database right. That means, in complex transactions, you can have many co-investors in the round. You have cap table data that can be connected to those financial rounds. You have some CRM data where you get notes from board meetings. Then you have the investment documents where you also have all kinds of information about the liquidation preferences, etc. So to handle, to really kind of get this straight, so everything is well connected and it understands the context, you need, in a way, like a specific database for this, right? So because as in any even data analytics world, where if there is a garbage at the beginning, you always get the garbage out, and this also comes when vibe coding your user interface. And if you think about it, like to manage this kind of setup, at first might sound it's relatively easy or cheap to set up and run, but over time there is a cost of maintaining these kind of systems, checking for errors. There are usually no audit trails to these, so at the end, over time, it actually gets more expensive. For us, at Vestberry, we're actually quite excited, about the AI wave and the vibe coding opportunities, and I think it's a great opportunity to combine the best of two worlds. And where Vestberry is on the left side, where we structure unstructured data into our product that understands the VC context, understands all the complexities of venture investing, and also connects, to different VC tools, either the CRM systems such as Affinity, Atio, or the back office tools such as Thunderbird. And you can really have basically everything in one place with proper time series, so you can rely on building your, let's say, custom interfaces or specific apps on top. Maybe 6-7 months ago, we released our MCP server, which basically allows to connect your Vestberry account to Claude or any other interface where you can build apps. There are some of the first, let's say, examples that we were playing around with, also discussing with our customers how this kind of setup could look like, and that's also something I want to show you today. So what we have built is, we are in the portfolio management space, so we used our example in the follow-on decision-making process. Very often, investors come in and basically make decisions about whether to participate in the next round or not. And we wanted to make this, let's say, more data-driven. So we work with the underlying data that lives in Vestberry. Now let me show you how such interface can look like and how this is already pre-built. As the other guys, it would take some time to prompt this, but also this can be down the road even used as a template. I would love to see that the community, let's say, of our customers could also build their own, let's say, micro tools on top for their use cases, right? So our app doesn't have to be bloated with all the functionalities, but let's say you have a specific workflow, the vibe coding use case is perfect just to build, let's say, a single interface for one of the jobs you need to do in portfolio management. So in this example, this is a made-up example of Sequoia Capital making a follow-on investment into Airbnb. We have two sets of information that are pulled from our app. So you have basically, you receive a term sheet from the company. You know the new terms, right? So basically you have pre-money, post-money valuations, who are the co-investors, what are the rights. And then, since we have also cap table information, historic cap table information, we know, what are my pro rata rights, what is my current ownership. So actually, I can model out the scenario, how much I want to participate, right? So I can see what would be the potential outcome if we pass on this deal, if we only use our pro rata, or I want to be bullish on this company and I want to increase my commitment. But also the commitment is in the context of my fund reserves, as this is again pulled from Vestberry and the broader context. And we can also estimate the potential returns down the road as we have some kind of exit expectations. Then also we have the underlying evidence that supports this, because if you need to bring this to your IC and you want to show data behind this decision, we pull the KPI data, since we collect data from portfolio companies on a regular basis. We have the latest cap table information. We see what was the latest round. Vestberry has its own benchmark data sets of around 8,000 portfolio companies, so you can see how this company is performing to their peers in different aspects and elements of their growth metrics, but also qualitative input, which could again could come from one of the CRMs we're connected to, Affinity or Atio or even custom basis, which basically kind of puts together the notes from the calls if set up in that way. So basically, yeah, you have the evidence information, you have the opportunities to participate or use your pro rata or pass, and you have the latest terms. And you can basically, in one picture, have it on basically one interface. I think this is a great use case where you can build on top of existing systems that are reliable, compliant, have proper data structure and granularity. Because if you would maybe have several spreadsheets connected, or maybe just connected directly to the investment agreements of those investments, you would probably get funky results, and you would probably not rely on those calculations that you see here. Since this is built on top of the MCP server, we have all the data points available there. You can truly rely on what you see here and use it as an internal small app for the custom workflows. So yeah, we're currently playing around, with these use cases, trying to build or play around with some of these builds. It's not like fully rolled out. It's still early on, but I think this is also, from our perspective, an opportunity where we can give a lot more freedom, to our customers. You can customize it to your colors, your design needs, and plug in whatever data points you need. But again, I think the big difference will be on the underlying foundational data structure that is well organized, and you can rely on what you vibe code on top down the road. So yeah, briefly from my side, I'll cut it off here because we need to go to our Q&A. If this was interesting, definitely feel free to reach out to me or Maurice or Georgiy. We are all kind of going at this, through different angles. I think it's still kind of early on, so we get also a lot of learning. So if you have some experiences yourself, feel free to share with us. And now let's go through some of the questions. Okay, let me open it here. Okay, so let's go for this is for Maurice. Is that 1 hour, or maybe I'll put it here. Is that 1 hour final reconciliation cycle including checks and reviews by human?
In that case, yes. So basically, what the human is doing is reading the final report and is checking the input file that the agent is producing for Datev, like the accounting system. And in the best case scenario, that's it. Of course, if you see that the agent produced issues or, I don't know, forgot something for whatever reason, then it's more. But so far, ideally not.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Maurice. We have a question from Val here. How do you track, evaluate, and tune agents' performance and tokens consumption? Any great tool suggestions for that? Maybe Georgiy or Maurice, any?
I think I think it depends on what you build the agent with. So we were actually huge proponents of LangChain, and so for a long time we used Langsmith. And with Langsmith, it's paid, but you can track the usage, and we would actually create internal custom dashboards and metrics that we would measure that against. There are some paid tools that are available. I have a few resources that I can share also, Marek, that we track. We have like a tools channel internally that our team tracks and we use. But we actually internally just use Langsmith. With that being said, we have been more recently transitioning over to Mastra agents for the front end because they're in React and not in Python, so they're easier to implement for front ends. And more lately for harness implementation, we're playing around with some of the Cloudflare built-in harnesses. I think there's different use cases and whatnot, depending on what you're trying to do, where either one may be appropriate, but observability and performance and token consumption, a lot of that, depending on the use case, you may need to build some sort of a custom scaffolding around. There is no perfect, at least we haven't found a perfect tool that is a one-size-fits-all. Langsmith is great out of the box, but you usually need to add something that's custom to you.
Gotcha. Thank you. We have one question about deployment. How and where do you primarily deploy your agentic system, agents plus sub-agents? Do you use SDKs to write programs and deploy them on a server, or use local platforms like n8n? Which approach is more scalable in long term?
I can take a stab at this as well. I'm happy.
Go.
So I think n8n is great for simple agents, but the challenge with n8n is, so n8n now has an MCP server, so it can actually create flows, which is great. And if you're not a very technical user, go n8n, 100% easiest drag and drop. If you're more technical, and more technical, I mean, you know what a Docker container is, and you know how to spin up and deploy a Docker container. That's what I mean. Then you want to use agent SDKs and deploy them. And for deployments, again, right now there's a lot of the latest tools that are deployed with like Cloudflare, for example. We use a variety of different systems. We deploy with trigger.dev, a lot of simple agents. They have like a agentic pipeline system that can spin up pipelines very flexibly. So if you haven't heard of trigger.dev, I would highly recommend. They've raised quite a few rounds already. They're pretty fast-growing startup.
Perfect. Thanks. I'll take one last question, and I think that's a great question for both of you. So if we haven't integrated any AI into our VC fund workflow, where shall we start? What do you suggest? What would be the first starting point from your perspective?
Well, I think, to be honest, the easiest thing is sign up for Claude or ChatGPT, start working with that, but not just like the usual, like what's the weather today? Have a look what are artifacts, what are skills. Right now, Claude is actually, Anthropic is actually opening kind of their own certifications and education platform. So it's quite easy to learn on it. And I think it's the quickest rewarding thing to do. And once you reach that point where you say, okay, now you want to go into real agentic workflows, and instead of prompting, you want to delegate something. I think the easiest thing to work with right now is actually managed agents by Anthropic. It's super simple to work with. And if you start with Claude, it's intuitive. You don't need to ship any of your own infrastructure. And it kind of gets you into the game very quickly. Only issue is you have to stick with Entropic. So if you want to use any other providers, you want to fine-tune something for a specific use case with a different model, you want to do something on-prem, so more custom specialized applications are not possible right now.
I will echo what you said, Maurice. I will echo what you said. I think N8N is fantastic. Claude agents. Again, I think it's easy to get started and to do some of the basic operations or what you have already set up. But if you want any deeper context, data infrastructure, you do need to invest time into thinking through what is my CRM setup going to look like? How am I going to store files? What does my data layer look like? Where am I storing my data? What do backups look like? What kind of historical data do I have? It's also not efficient as you scale and actually do this large volume to do it all with Claude. So you need to figure out, okay, what are actual proper data pipelines going to look like? There's a lot of nuance. To get started, Claude, N8N, I'll echo that, fantastic. But if you're serious about scaling and getting beyond that for your team, I would probably think a little bit deeper about how you want to build out your data foundations.
Amazing, guys. Thank you very much. We've hit the time deadline, so thank you all for joining us today. I think it was very practical, so I'm definitely taking a few ideas back home. So thanks, Georgiy and Maurice, for joining today. For the rest of you, feel free to reach out either to me, Georgiy, or Maurice if you have any other questions. If we can be helpful in any other way. So. Take care, have a good day, and see you later.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.